The last couple of days have been a stressful fake news suite of 3 United States Navy ships into the northern coast of Venezuela in preparation for invasion of the country and a potential beginning of a multi-year war that would extend in Vietnam fashion over the rest of the continent. Such dreadful scenario has been averted as fake news investigators have determined that such ships are actually west of the Panama Canal or in Guantanamo, Cuba, or the Gulf of Mexico. Even one is in the English Channel near Dover between England and France. And another aforementioned ship was actually in Japan, and another one near Jacksonville, Florida. However, for some reason, during the last couple of days, Venezuela has become paralyzed due to this information that was reposted constantly through official and unofficial channels and required a thorough reassessment of personal relationships between everyone. As many people who seemed to support invasion are actually patriotic and will defend Venezuela, and others are just pretending to surrender our country into the United States. It has been significant to see American reaction. It looks like the United States population does not welcome Donald Trump initiating World War III in the Caribbean for the excuse of preventing drug traffic from Venezuela, which, as confirmed by the United Nations, is not even one of the most important drug countries in the hemisphere. But of course, you get Representative Carlos Jimenez, or you get Maria Elvira Salazar, Ivan Simonovic, and the usual suspects, and even Mrs. Maria Corina Machado retweeting Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, by the way, he retweeted, what's the name of this beautiful Barbie press secretary of Donald Trump? Catherine, who had to read a paper saying that they need to counter drug traffic from Venezuela, which is her source. Also, we remember that not too long ago, when we had the Chevron license impasse, Tammy Bruce spoke about the ending license day, and Chevron continues producing oil in Venezuela. It seems like Donald Trump and Marco Rubio are too scared to talk to Nicolas Maduro, and they have already talked to Vladimir Putin. Is Maduro more terrifying than Vladimir Putin? Both Donald Trump and Marco Rubio are afraid of speaking themselves about issues concerning Venezuela. They always delegate the theme to their subordinates, such as Tammy Bruce or Barbie Catherine. I would like to thank all United States citizens who oppose a war in Venezuela. We had an election with contested results. The results were never shown in Venezuela. They were published on a website, but the matter went to the Supreme Tribunal of Justice, and the evidence was not provided. Probably the election was stolen. as happens in any country. Doesn't Donald Trump say that his election was stolen in the United States in 2020? And Venezuela has a history of stolen elections. El Mocho Hernandez in the 19th century had an election stolen, and in the 20th century, during the dictatorship of Marcos Pérez Jiménez, Jovito Villalda was also stolen an election. However, Edmundo González Urrutia, for whom I created a movement which you may have seen on my website or on my social media accounts, Cobranza del Triunfo or Collecting Triumph. It was devoted to claiming that Edmundo González Urrutia won. And he was even given the possibility of taking possession of his presidency in the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, D.C., or in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, where he was present on January 10th. Article 231 of the Venezuelan Constitution clearly states that the Venezuelan president-elect must be sworn in on January 10th of the following year after the election. Edmundo failed to do so. And he could do it not only in an embassy, he could do it in an airplane with Venezuelan flag. Or he could also have been sworn in on a ship with Venezuelan flag. And he could be president in exile. However, as Edmundo violated Article 231 of the Constitution, well, of course, Nicolas Maduro went in to the National Assembly on January 10th, and he got sworn in. End of the story. We have to wait until 2030 for next presidential elections, and that page has been passed long ago. Venezuelans are horrified of this political process that never ends. The primaries for choosing Maria Corina Machado as a presidential candidate started in 2022. We're already in 2025. We have been 3 years non-stop of political campaign. That is enough. We already concluded regional elections and municipal elections. Results are fine. Nobody has contested them. And we need the president, the governors, and the mayors to work. I was pleased to see that authorities from Colombian mining and energy ministry are in Caracas right now with Delcy Rodriguez as they are fixing the terms of selling Monomeros fertilizer company to the Ecopetrol Petroleum Company of Colombia. I think it's a great deal. I think that will benefit both Venezuela needing cash, and we also get away from that horrible history of the interim government of Juan Guaido that bankrupted that company. And the same thing happened with Citgo. It seems that the Citgo sale in the United States will happen soon. It has been deferred, but probably for just a few days, and the process will finish by the end of August. So be it. Citgo was a great business at a time. We had bad politicians and mismanagement. It broke. End of the story. Venezuela can build new refineries within Venezuela, Colombia, and Guyana. There is a huge project that can be started to benefit us all. The American public is clever, and when they are saying that they don't want any involvement in United States wars against Venezuela, because they know United States They don't care if we are a democracy or a dictatorship. They don't care if we follow human rights or if we don't follow human rights. And of course, all these deals with human rights in all wars that the United States gets involved all over the world, no one really can lecture another country on human rights. With the possible exception of Israel, which definitely violates human rights in Gaza as a genocide, as determined by the International Court of Justice. That International Court of Justice also has the Guyana-Venezuela border dispute. Let's see how that goes. Now, it also makes me think, Marco Rubio recently alluded Guyana elections as an excuse for deploying ships in Venezuela. Why on earth would Venezuela destroy oil infrastructure anywhere? We have worked with the petroleum industry for over 100 years. We are experienced in that sector of the economy. And today the United States is courting Guyana and is making war to Venezuela. 100 years ago it was the opposite because of the Monroe Doctrine. Will Guyanese vote by fear of United States sanctions? The foreign minister of Brazil, Amorim, said today or yesterday that even though they don't recognize presidency of Maduro, they still have a relationship with the Venezuelan state. Perhaps that would be a strategy that Guyana could pursue. Does Guyana really want to have the United States patrolling the Caribbean constantly? And the drug comes to Guyana from Venezuela. And the drug comes to Venezuela from Colombia. Petro actually told Maduro that there are parts of irregular guerrilla movements that thrive on drug traffic in the border region, which is good that Petro told that to Maduro. Perhaps the good side of this United States emphasis is that regional countries in South America, we are determined to increase our security, but most importantly, it is time to identify who really wants to live for Venezuela and who just belongs to the United States. And when I speak to Venezuela, I could perfectly change the country for Guyana because it would be the same situation. Imagine Guyana 10 or 20 or 30 years from now, after the current oil boom, and the United States gets angry at Guyana for whatever reason, and they start harassing you. And Venezuela will still be your neighbor, and Brazil will still be your neighbor, and Suriname will still be your neighbor, because you don't choose your neighbors. Your neighbors are with you forever, especially if they are countries. Because if you are just a person, you just sell your house or your apartment and you live somewhere else, and then your neighbors are different. But on Earth, you would have to wait millions of years so that a tectonic plate separates. But the thing is that Guyana and Venezuela and Suriname and northern Brazil are on the same Guyana Shield, which is the oldest land on Earth along with Australia. Nothing in the planet is as old as territories of Guyana, southeastern Venezuela, Suriname, northern Brazil, and Australia. No fault lines, very stable. We will be neighbors forever. I have no clue what's happening on the Guyana campaign this time. I really have been concentrated on this United States-Venezuela situation. And now you have Maria Corina Machado retweeting Marco Rubio. All she wants is intervention. And it was fake news. So expectations from people who want invasion and intervention once again will be destroyed, but those people are being identified. Venezuelans in the diaspora, many of them are day and night working to destabilize Venezuela. They have worked to remove our oil licenses, and as a result, many Venezuelans are having a very hard time to earn a living. Those of us who have private businesses, we just find no clients willing to pay. And this political uncertainty and this military war uncertainty, of course, will derange the economy a little bit more. It is extremely sad to yield to the United States so obviously. Look at the Europeans in the European Union. They all were summoned by Donald Trump with Zelensky in the White House, and Donald Trump lectured to all of them. So where is the sovereignty of Europe? Do we really in South America want one day in the future to be summoned to the White House so that Donald Trump or whoever is president of the United States later just lectures us? That is not our destiny. Hopefully the lesson from these 2 days of fake news promoting war in the Caribbean gets a strong reaction from Caribbean and Latin American and South American countries, so that we work further on our integration, so that we no longer require United States intervention. If we had a war with the United States, that wouldn't be easy. American soldiers will die. When has Venezuela invaded another country? We got the Essequibo stolen from the United Kingdom. We lost territory from Colombia. We have never been at war with anyone. We had a civil war in the 19th century, a little before the United States Civil War. In 1859 was our civil war, a few decades after independence. And after that, we have been in peace. Petroleum was found in the late 19th century and started being commercialized at the early 20th century. And we have a great petroleum industry. All it needs is a little bit of refurbishing. And it would be ideal to unite petroleum industries of Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, and Venezuela, and build a pipeline into northern Brazil and into the Colombian, Peruvian, Ecuadorian, Bolivian, Paraguayan, Chaco, and Vaca Muerta and San Jorge in Argentina. All of South America should be as a huge petroleum supplier. It is to the interest of South America that we become so efficient in our oil production and transportation industry that we can produce oil at a very low average cost and sell it profitably at $50 or $40 a barrel. It can be possible to be profitable with economies of scale if the whole continent develops so that we can outsmart all our competitors. Of course, the United States does not want petroleum at $40 a barrel or $50 a barrel, because then their oil industry would crash and they would buy all oil from us. Guyana can also sell oil at $45 a barrel easily. But probably the country would need to ask better terms from the petroleum companies. All we need is the political association between the South American countries. And in that sense, I applaud what the Petro and Maduro governments are doing with respect to monomeros. They are moving in the right direction there. Let's see what will happen with Citgo. It will be painful to see Citgo go. We don't know yet what will be the exact terms of the tender that is being received by Citgo and who will administer the money, because the problem is that the money is frozen by United States authorities, or it was given by the interim government that was as corrupt as Nicolas Maduro's government. But then there has been corruption in all countries anyway. And the problem is that when you have wars, you have to accept some sort of corruption if you have to support your country against an enemy aggression from abroad. This is really sad. When I started these shows, I was so happy trying to make projects on how to unite our countries and culture, but it seems that the world just doesn't want peace. The world just wants to engage in war forever. It is clear that those ships might come into the Venezuelan coast at any time, because now Nicolas Maduro has prepared 4.5 million militias along with the regular army and navy. Venezuela will fight. We are not just going to be invaded just as easily. And we have seen what the Houthis have been able to do. We have been learning from all over the planet what must be done if we get an invasion. You can't remove a dictator just to place another dictator. That doesn't work that way. And the sad part is the excuse of drugs. And at this date, we see absolutely no fresh ideas on how to curb demand of drugs in the United States culture, where everybody thinks it's cool to be a drug addict.